we end up finding out that Silent has been known for like the shady type of stuff, selling Fortnite accounts, Discords that have access to like Fortnite, I guess Scrim channels and stuff like that. Just a shady person in general. And I guess when Valorant started, he actually impersonated Vic. So what he would do,
No way.
right, what he would do, it's just that's the part that really boggles my mind is that he can just like cut this,
Act like
cut
nothing
this,
happened.
and exactly act like nothing happened. That's the tendency that I'll never be able to understand.
Over the last couple of weeks, we sort of caught wind of the bizarrest scheme ever. Basically, a team of dedicated of grinders of Valorant were basically dupes by an individual who was masquerading as FaZe Clan's manager, known as Infamous. You see him on Twitter. He sometimes jumps into the chat here and sort of saying that he wanted to sign them. It is pretty insane stuff here. This guy has been able to, and it's quite sophisticated what he's done in order to do this. And it is a bizarre situation. In order to sort of explain and talk us through some of exactly what went down, we're bringing on one of the players who was directly affected by this situation. So I want to thank tdawgg for joining us here on the show and for giving us some of his time. tdawgg, great to have you here, man. This is a bizarre story.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. It is something interesting for sure. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So now, Travis, you released a YouTube video that did explain the situation. In fact, two of them there, so people can find those. But now that we've got you here,
Yep.
I'd love to understand a little bit more of the timeline of this sort of situation and how this came to pass. Because obviously we're in an online world. There is the potential to impersonate someone, but it's not easy and it requires a hell of a lot of effort to do it.
Right. I guess to start off, I guess the original idea that he had was to persuade one of his friends that he's known for years, someone by the name of Vic. He's a 16-year-old premier Counter Strike player, and if you don't know what premier Counter Strike is, it's basically like the G League of
Mhm,
professional CS. You're basically one
mhm.
step away from really making it. Um, he had this original roster of players around May 14th that he tried to kind of persuade Vic, hey, this roster can make it. I want you to play Valorant. You can be really good. And that roster ended up falling apart. And the new roster that I was actually coaching was
Mhm.
A77, Nerve, Silent, Vic, and Lunar. And I was kind of brought on under the suspicion that, or under the assumption, I guess, that everything needs to be super down low. Can't say anything about
Sure.
anything. We're getting assigned to a very high level org. This and that. This and that. I originally wasn't even supposed to be there. A77, one of my former teammates who was in the situation, he called me asking about some tips being an in-game leader. I'm an in-game leader, and he was trying to step up to the plate to be one for that team. And I brought up the idea of maybe even having me as a coach. That's how I kind of got solidified on the team was the coach
Gotcha.
role actually.
Mm. Now, the person sort of perpetrating this. This all sort of began as something that was on the down low, like a really sort of quiet project.
Mhm.
Silent, you mentioned this. Silent is the individual, as far as I understand, that sort of perpetrated this behavior, right? So Silent was actually a player on this roster.
Right.
Uh, but at the same, what? So correct me if I'm wrong. At the same time, is Silent then impersonating um, Infamous? Like, how does it develop sort of from the genesis of the roster? How does this idea about this FaZe Clan project come about? And what are you being
Right.
told about this? How does he sell it to you?
So it was a game of telephone almost, where Infamous would talk to Silent, and then Silent would relay the info to us. We never actually got to talk to Infamous.
Right.
Silent kept on just ensuring us that this needs to be kept like really down low. We can't talk about it. He's only talking to me about it because he shouldn't even be doing this. He's like, taking a risk or something, trying to like impress FaZe. I don't really remember what he was saying, but
Right.
he made up all these DMs, Photoshop the images together. I mean, this guy was having like I'm talking like 20, 30 conversations with himself, and it's just he got tangled up in this web of lies, and he just kept it going for whatever reason.
That's
That's
insane.
insane.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Uber and I just literally said the same thing. That it's like the worst. It's like the best catfishing I've ever fucking seen in terms of how this is going. And now we're looking at these screenshots where you actually did have a conversation that you explained in your video with Infamous. So at
Mhm.
this point, like, at what point was there a tipping moment where you're like, well, I need to start reaching out to
Wait a
Infamous
minute. Is
myself?
that conversation? Is that you're not in that conversation, right, Travis? That's Silent and Infamous in
Right.
that conversation. Yes.
What is presumably exactly? Yeah,
Right.
that's
Okay,
him
okay,
talking
okay.
to himself. But there is a segment in the video where I actually do reach out to Infamous.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So again, doing some more kind of like timeline based talking. We were
Yeah.
originally on a 2 week trial period where he was either going to make the decision that we were good enough or we weren't good enough, and
Mm.
he would do that by watching the VODs. Is what Silent ended up typing up. So after that 2 weeks, he talked at the board meeting with the phase people, saying
Jeez.
that they want to see more of us. So he wants to do another 2 weeks
Board
of
meeting.
maybe some lower tier tournaments and stuff like that. So we were playing in stuff maybe you guys have heard of VCS, Nerd
Yes, yes.
Street, I'm sure, and it was we were supposed to talk to Infamous last Saturday. That was like the day we talked to him, and
Okay.
that Friday, Silent messages our like team Snapchat group chat just to like schedule stuff. He messages us saying that from Infamous. Why am I hearing about FaZe Academy Valorant? So he was trying to trick us thinking that it got leaked and that it was all going to fall apart before we found out it was him. Um, so, me, A77 and Nerve, we all got into a Discord call. I'm not going to lie, we were nervous, because we thought
Sure.
this was real, right?
Yeah.
And, I was the only person who had like contact with Infamous just because we were mutuals. We met a while back.
Yeah.
And I ended up messaging him and I'm trying to be all nonchalant, very vague about it. I'm like, hey, Infamous, I'm coaching this project team you have, blah 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 blah. And he's like, project team? What do you mean by that? And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. He's just trying to, he's just trying to keep it down low too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that one, that one with Silent, that you've been talking to this past month and a half? He's like, yeah, I have no clue what you're talking about, buddy. And I'm just like,
Oh
wait, what?
God.
So then I just go full blatant. I'm like, okay. So the silent guy has been telling me that we're getting signed to FaZe Academy. We've been working for 6 weeks towards this. You're telling me you know nothing about this? He's
Six
like,
weeks.
yep, no idea. I don't know what you're talking about at all.
Oh my God.
And we
Yeah.
get him in Discord and we go over it.
This is a sucky part too, because I think I remember in the video you were also saying that you, amongst other teammates of yours, also like took time, sweat, tears, whatever it is, to like time aside, put money into this project because of this promise at the end that you were getting really close to getting signed to a FaZe Academy team. So any opportunities that were kind of like there for you guys was like kind of like pulled under from, like, the rug was pulled under from under your feet.
Yep.
So that fucking already sucks right there.
Yep.
But where did those flags come? Because right now we just saw the tweet from Toe Casey as well. So I don't know if
Yep.
you had any conversation with Toe Casey at the same time, because he comes from, of course, analyst of E United. So
Is he United? Yeah.
what conversations did you have with Casey before, and then the red flags started coming right after, I assume?
Right. So with this whole thing kind of catching traction, getting it put into the limelight, I've been reading a lot of comments. Long story short, explaining how myself and everyone else on the team is an idiot. Wow, we got duped. How are you this dumb to fall for something like this?
Yeah.
And while I understand that we may seem like fools, I can assure you that no one here was under the impression that this was fake.
Of
I
course.
personally walked into this situation viewing it like this. Vic and Silent have known each other for almost 5 years. Nerve and Silent have known each other for over a year. And, this was a friend group almost that I felt like I was
Mhm.
walking into. That's why this was so real to me,
Yeah.
And A77, someone on the team, he had his doubts, and I would always try to reassure him. I'm like, Aiden, listen, how could this be fake? This doesn't make any sense to be fake. What's he gonna get out of this if this is
Yeah.
fake,
What's the
right?
exactly?
And
Yeah.
that's the thing that just blew my mind was that it really was. But getting back to Casey, we had another person brought on just as a trial coach,
Mhm.
and that's what Casey was going to be. He's going to be like our analyst, assistant coach type deal. And that's the thing that's scary about it is the hypotheticals. If someone on the team made a purchase, expecting that they were going to get reimbursed for that, right, with this signing
Yeah.
Mhm.
bonus, with this contract, um, or the opportunities, right. So I'm just thankful that Casey and the other coach, who I'm just not going to name, just because I don't think they need to
Sure.
be named.
Yeah.
Um, I'm happy that they went with their real paid opportunities rather than this.
Mhm.
because I would feel, terrible if they were brought into that situation and now they'd just be dead in the water.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
thankfully, none of you guys actually went for like these early purchases
right,
with the false promise of that. So thankfully, like you dodged that fucking bullet.
I mean,
It could have been
yeah,
like a worse story than it is. Well, it's already a bad story, but at
it's
least a
the
worse
principle
position
that
for
we're
you guys.
grappling with, I
exactly.
think, and that's what is the most astonishing to me. So essentially, this Vic bloke knew Silent for quite a while. Like there was pre-existing relationship there. So I mean, I mean, we brought you on the show because I want to hear from you. But I mean, have you spoken to Vic about this? Like his mate of a decent while, actively trying to dupe him as well.
Right.
That is absolutely mental.
So I end up finding out, on basically D-Day, I guess you could call it, is when when everything really went downhill. When we started, debunking the case. We end up finding out that Silent has been known for like the shady type of stuff, selling Fortnite accounts, Discords that have access to like Fortnite, I guess Scrim channels and stuff like that. Just a shady person in general. And I guess when Valorant started, he actually impersonated Vic. So what he would
No
do,
fucking way.
right, right. What he would do is that he would send Vic's ESEA profile to people, saying, "Hey, you want to team up for this tournament?
He was a premier player.
This and that,
Yeah.
this and that."
Yeah.
And Vic didn't play Valorant at the time, right? So there's really no way of getting this unless you were probably, involved in ESEA and you end up
Yeah.
messaging that account just to, just being skeptical. But again, no one would really do that, right? No one's
But
gonna be
he's
like,
friends with Vic.
"Yep,
He's friends with Vic for 5 years and still
He's impersonating the
impersonates
guy.
Vic.
yep,
Yeah.
And Vic has no issues with it.
right." It
Damn.
just, I guess it's a thing that I don't know if they worked it out or they swept it under the rug, but I ended up, finding that out not too long ago. And again, it's just, he wrote it in his little apology where he basically said that he I don't know why he said it, but he said that he knows he's a scummy person and that he'll do anything to get what he wants, and just that's the
I remember
mentality
reading
of
that.
just yeah, I
I
just
mean, it would be fine if this guy had like, galactic ambitions, you know what I mean? But like he the scale of this is frankly like what he's done is unbelievable. The scale of this obviously it's more because obviously, an academy team of a roster can't compete in the VCT.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like so like this you are limited at least in the scale here. So it
right.
would maybe make more sense he was trying to take over the world by impersonating people. But it seems like
Exactly.
this is not the kind of this is like small fish that he's really just doing this absolutely insane stuff for.
I
Ryan,
agree.
I don't know, man. Like you've been sat here the whole time. I mean, this.
The
I'm sure you're
one
just
the
trying to
one thing
process
that I
this.
I don't understand from this is from your perspective, like what was in it for Silent? Like
Exactly.
it seems that he's just doing stuff for like shits and giggles, so to speak. So that's the only confusing thing. I can understand from your perspective that when somebody's manipulating you like that, it's kind of like, all right, I'm gonna do everything they tell. Like if they want me to be quiet, I'm gonna keep stum because FaZe is a big og. Like I fully
Yes, you don't want to
understand
mess with
and
the opportunity. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't get from Silent's perspective what he was hoping to achieve. Did he want to try and get you all into a team that he could sort of take control of? From your perspective, what do you think it was?
Well, I think that he's openly admitted this, so I'm not scared to say it. He knows that he's not good at Valorant. There's nothing wrong with not being good at Valorant. Anybody can play any game for whatever reason. But when you're trying to make it or go pro or whatever, you got to be good, right? So
Sure.
his what he ended up explaining in apology he sent to me was that his initial goal was again to get Vic to come play the game. Like he didn't want Vic to play CS anymore. He wanted Vic to like come over and play Valorant and just dominate because he knew he'd be good at it. And I guess he used FaZe Academy as leverage. And then when the whole team formed, he said that he hoped that we could all just put it away, sweep it under the rug and move on and maybe get picked up by an actual team.
Oh
So
god.
I started to believe that this is just a situation of method acting, if you know what that was, like some,
Yeah.
uh, where you're playing this role, the level of lies and this fantasy world that you live in, you actually start to believe that it's
You still
true.
believe it. Yep.
And I think that's what he really fell into. I think that he just really hoped that we wouldn't find out. And for some reason, some org would just hit us up and say, "Hey, want to play Valorant for us?" And we could just go our separate ways with FaZe
Just
and go with
forget
them.
about all the stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
don't worry about all
Exactly.
that. Hey Vic, by the way, I've been impersonating you for in the Valorant scene. I've been laying the path, man. Like the connections are already there. You just jump in, get into the cockpit. and you're good to go.
Right.
So, Travis, obviously you mentioned that sort of Vic seemed to be okay with him being impersonator for a time.
Mhm.
But he wasn't in on this FaZe Academy situation either.
No.
So this is the second time that he had sort of been quote unquote duped a little bit by this guy.
Yep.
Is he still okay with this? Or is there a line? Is he, like, because yeah, my guy's been complicit in sort of allowing himself to be, I'm not trying to put a target on the guy's back at all. I'm just really curious
No.
to how the dynamics go here. Like, how
Right.
does he feel about this now?
And I understand. I haven't really talked to Vic about the situation up until the day where it really happened. We're kind of just
Yeah.
like all almost in just astonished, just disbelief that this was a reality that we're gonna have to deal with now.
Right.
But I really don't know how he feels. If
Okay.
I were him, I definitely would feel betrayed at least because
Mhm.
out of all the people, I spent the shortest amount of time with that team. I was brought on as a coach. They already had like a not established, but they already had a project roster they were working with, and I was the only one who got apologized to.
Mm.
And I don't really know why that was, but you don't issue to an apology to a friend of 4 or 5 years. You don't issue to an apology to a friend, over a year, Nerve, who he met up playing Valorant, and you're
Yep.
just throwing away, those late Discord conversation nights, whether you're sitting around or playing a game, watching a movie, whatever it is. It's just that's the part that really boggles my mind is that he can just like
Act like
cut
nothing
this, and
happened. Yeah.
exactly act like nothing happened. That's the tendency that I'll never be able to understand.
Yeah, it
That
is. I think understanding sociopathy is extremely difficult, though,
yeah.
at times,
Yeah.
like
Right.
to sort of relate to that. Sorry, Vance. Carry on.
No. I was just again baffled and mind boggled as much as you guys. Is like if it did happen at some point, like his plan was that you guys stick together, you see the results. Basically, for Silent, you're basically coattailing and riding rosters and hoping to get picked up to get some sort of salary to start things off.
Right.
Probably won't progress far enough, but at least you could say at some point, "Oh, I got pro level under my belt now." But
Mhm.
imagine it gets to a point where the whole phase thing doesn't work out, and then an org wants to pick you up. Then what's the train of lies there? It's like I don't think in any day you would probably say you would join, let's say, a tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 organization over the opportunity of FaZe Academy.
Right.
I mean, for you for you, tdawgg, as a coach, and for the rest of the roster, be like, no, man, we have an opportunity to fucking represent FaZe at some point. You wouldn't fucking put FaZe aside, so the lies would be like
Absolutely.
even worse at that point. But to get back onto the questions, you've mentioned now, like, yeah, it's the harsh reality that you have to face right now. I do feel that, and I think the community is really behind you guys as well. Lots of good lucks were definitely shared in terms of best of luck for the next endeavor for the whole team. What is the next step for the whole team right now? Are you guys still sticking together, of course, without Silent and trying to figure out a new fifth and still grind the VCS and everything to try to get that opportunity again? Because again, you spend a lot of money into this and a lot of time into this right now. Hopefully, you guys are not giving up too.
Right. As I'm not gonna call myself young. I'm just not old. I'm 20. I'm 21. I'm 21. So I only pursue this coaching opportunity due to the situation, right?
Okay.
Sure.
If I
Okay.
hear the money that I was offered on top of FaZe, I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna start pursuing coaching. Might as well
Yeah.
kickstart
Yeah.
it.
Of
I know
course.
that is going to be my path at some time in my life. But as of right now, I think I'm good enough as a player to continue pursuing that. So I've
Hmm.
just been streaming, looking around, testing out the waters, see what's there, for for this next upcoming VCT. But they are trying to stay together as a roster. They're working on basically trialing a fifth player right now. I know that they played in, I think Nerd Street yesterday, so
Yep.
they're working on something. But that's the funny part about this entire situation is that even with Silent gone and this whole thing over, the team's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
was actually pretty good, and I think that with time, especially with the amount of exposure that this whole situation is getting, that I could see them getting picked up by somebody.
I think it would be a great way to spite him. I think for that
Right.
team to go on
Yeah,
and
yeah.
find success. Um,
So, like on this podcast, there's obviously we tried to bring to light things that could be changed and made better for stuff like casting and like the
Mm,
Europe side of stuff. Obviously, tier two, I think everybody looks at NA and goes, things are great. The scene is booming. There's a lot of orgs getting involved. Sure, there's some dropping out. From your perspective, in that sort of tier two to tier three scene, where there are tournaments of people know about the Nerd Street do, Pittsburgh's Knights do, for example. Is there anything that you not so much want to bring to light, but what are you hoping for the next year outside of the tier one scene and below? What would you like to see as a player more? Like, more certain kinds of tournaments, reasons for this to not happen again, I suppose,
Right.
or things put in place to stop that? What is it that you want to see out of this situation in order for people to go forward into a better and healthier scene?
Right. I think that you make a good point where NA tier 2 is really healthy, you know.
Mm.
I think even like tier 3 and the lower levels are still there. I want to see the lower level tournaments progress. VCS, for example, is a great one. They have done their part for the community. They have been literally the stepping stone for tier 3 players and anyone who aspires to make it to the next level. You know, all the people who have been basically brought up from that tier 2 level to tier 1, that we all did our time, right, in VCS, you know. You can go
Mm.
back and check the brackets. You know, you can see big names. We did as one of them, for example, on Mamba mode, right?
Yep.
Yep.
But I think that it's in the tournament organizers' hands to really, step up their game almost to really compete with those big dogs like Nerd Street. You know, Knights, for example, they've been doing great. Those monthly events are awesome to compete in. But I think the weekly tournaments, it's their turn to go to the next level. So whether it's a paid entry, better production, whatever it is, I think that they need to sit down and think outside the box.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think this sort of tier two scene will only grow as time goes on, and the more tournament providers we have that service that, the better it's going to be.
Right.
Travis, look, I know you mentioned that some people were pretty uncharitably, fairly critical of yourself and the others for sort of falling foul of this, but I think it's pretty clear that this is the kind of situation that could happen to anyone. I actually looked at a lot of the comments on the video you brought up, and like there are people that are well respected in the scene going, I would not have been surprised, to
Right.
see you guys actually become FaZe Academy. So I think people need to understand that there's a lot of plausibility here, and the extent that's gone to by this guy to sort of impersonate Infamous is bordering on the frightening. So
Mhm.
I
It's
just
a
want to
hell of
thank
a
you. Obviously,
character dangle. Sorry.
yeah, it maybe feels a bit. Maybe it's a bit tough to talk about because obviously you did get duped, and maybe there's some sort of negative feeling about that. But I want to thank you, Travis, for coming on and talking about this because I think it's really important to bring this to light and to sort of show what could happen, even to blokes who aren't young. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you are, but who have experience and aren't stupid,
Right.
can still get taken advantage of here. So, man, thanks so much for coming on,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
and I wish you all the best in the future, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, T-Dog.
Yep.
Thank you.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Quite the remarkable situation. Thanks again to T-Dog for coming onto the show because obviously, like, you have to lose a bit of pride to come and talk about that kind of stuff. But I think it's important that people know about this person.
Dude, yeah.
Impersonating more than one. A lot of people, by the way. He's done it in Fortnite. He's done it. Like, there are tons of people in the thread saying how they themselves have been impersonated by him. So, Christ, man, just learn to be okay with being yourself. Jesus fucking hell. All right, let's
That's
move
the
on,
thing.
though.
It's just the aerobics of like, why is he doing it?
Oh, it's yeah,
Oh,
the gymnastics. Like, for
okay.
what? For what? For what? For forming a team that can't even play VCT. Like, I understand that it's still a step up for many people grinding in tier two, but the fact that this guy is going to such a degree for the smallest of fish makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, I can't relate to that kind of individual, but then again, I've had success in my life, and it doesn't look like they have, so that probably makes sense.